Welcome back for another episode of the Think Deeper podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Will Harib, joined by Jack and Joe Wilkie. We've got a lot of exciting things going on at Focus Press that we want to fill you guys in on. There is one thing that I wanted to bring up, though, a note from last episode. I made a comment that was well received by some, not well received by others, so I wanted to address it. I do very much appreciate all the support on my position that soup is not a meal. I know that got us into some controversial hot water with that take.
Is hot water a meal?
But I just wanted the deep thinkers to know I stand my ground on that. I still don't think it's a meal, but I very much appreciate everybody's feedback. It was one of our more interesting debates, I think, because we haven't gotten into a lot of just heavy, hard-hitting debates. But anyway,
that's the good thing about this podcast is, you know what? Sometimes you're allowed to be wrong.
That's
okay.
Right. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know you didn't tell us how you're going to start this, and when you started this, when you're like, I said, yeah,
I did that on purpose. Yeah,
I was like, what in the world did he say? I was racking my brain thinking back. Yeah, no, you're wrong on that, but that's okay. That's okay. We still love you.
Yeah, so, I'm right on everything else, so you know whatever.
We'll give you that one. Yeah, the insignificant things.
But Joe, I think you've got something you want to bring up. Again, a lot of exciting things going on at Focus Press. So Joe, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We had talked about last week. Jack had said at the end of the podcast, I have a brand new podcast called the Get Out of Porn podcast. It is not intended to be the end all be all for porn. It's a 15-minute podcast, but that's intended to be for the young men, for the guys with short attention spans that, aren't going to sit down and listen to an hour of me just rant and talk. So, hey, if you have somebody who's struggling with it, even if not, it can give you a better understanding of the addiction itself. And so I'd encourage our listeners to check that out. Number 2, we have a new video up. We're starting a new video series called Focus on the Word. I've taken them. I'm going to encourage Jack and Will to maybe take some for me as well. Yeah, Focus on the Word is what it's called. So check out our YouTube page. What it is just trying to teach exegesis, basically. But exegesis, of course, is you read the entire book, and there's different things. This is just breaking down passages and showing some connections and some fun things. And so I'd encourage we put out the promo video, but I'd encourage our listeners to go check that out. And we will be releasing one every week. I don't think we've come up with a day per se, but we're going to try to release one per week. And so yeah, I'll encourage our listeners to go there.
It's really good stuff. Joe has sent us some of the ones that he's put together, and just the ability that you have to sit down with this video, to have your Bible open, to have your Bible markers or pens or whatever it is that you use, and kind of follow along and maybe just make some connections with certain wording in the text or themes that you just hadn't made before. Super cool. We're really hoping that it's going to be an effective tool for Bible study for, again, individuals, couples, families, whatever. So not to completely echo everything Joe said, go check that promotional video out. It's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to the weekly releases.
I'm going to tack on to that. Follow our Instagram, Focus Press Inc. INC, because we're going to be doing a lot of video on there. We're going to share some images, the quote images from our podcasts and all that. But it's going to be a really good way to kind of get notified about this stuff, and just another way to do it. So not to throw too much at you at the same time. You can check that out on YouTube, but it's going to go up on our Instagram as well. I know we got a lot of Instagram users. That's another way you can follow us, keep up with especially the video content we're trying to roll out, starting with Focus on the Word.
All right, gentlemen. Anything else that we want to say? I will say the Instagram. Yeah, follow us, because we got a couple other things. We keep saying this, but we do. We got a lot coming up.
I think there's only one post on there right now, but that will change.
Yeah,
that will change.
That's shortly. Exactly it. Yeah. So be on the front end. You can be a hipster. The Think Deepers are all going to be hipsters and get in.
Deep thinkers.
Deep thinkers. Is that what I said? What did I say?
Think Deepers.
You said Think Deepers.
Think Deepers. The same thing.
I think we're the Think Deepers and they're the Deepers.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, yes. So with that, we're gonna get into the episode. So this week we want to get into a topic that has been on my mind for the last little while. Something that's really frustrated me. I've been telling the guys maybe we should do a Think Fast, but we were thinking about topics that we wanted to cover, and this one came back around, and it's this idea of quiet quitting and Christians in the workplace. Now, I've used this term quiet quitting a few times, just checked in with people of, are you familiar with what's going on? Are you aware? And I've had a few come back and be like, what in the world is quiet quitting? And you may have seen the term, you may not know what it means, but quiet quitting is basically when you're giving the bare minimum at your work. You're not actually quitting your job, but you're giving the bare minimum. Look, I don't get paid enough for this. I'm overworked, and so I'm going to quiet quit. I'm going to scale back the output and the effort and just give the bare minimum of what I think I am worth or what they're actually paying me for. And so we're seeing this a lot. We're seeing it more with millennial culture, but it really is going around. If you're familiar, if you're on Twitter or any of the I don't know, the typical internet social media places. I don't know that it's as big on Facebook, but you're definitely seeing it in other places. It's really frustrating to me. We're going to get into that this episode, so that's what I want to talk about. But this rose to the top for me over the weekend. I was flying out. We were flying on an airline. Their machine was down, so to check in, and so we had to check in person. And bag gets up on the scale, and I asked the woman. I said, "Do you mind if I know it's at 40 pounds. We can't go over 40, but I have a book. Is it okay if I put the book in, or is that going to be a problem? Just ask him." Because I was fine carrying it through. Anyway, the quote was, what did she say? I don't care. I don't get paid enough to care, is what she said. And just had this like real flippant attitude toward the airline that she worked for. And I'm thinking, well, you took the job. And why would you not do it to the best of your ability? But this, I don't care. And it worked out for me. I mean, she let me put the book in, which is nice of her. But that phrase, I don't get paid enough to care, really stuck with me. And that really frustrated me. Guys, I'll throw it to you. Have you seen this? I imagine we all have personal stories here. You may see it even going through McDonald's, whatever it is. But are you seeing this? Is this just me that's getting bent out of shape about this? Or are you seeing this?
No, I think you're right. It's I don't want to get too political here, but the struggles over the last 2 or 3 years of, going to places that have 10, 12 open tables and, there's a 20-minute wait just because they can't get the people to show up. The people, there's just the quality of service overall, stuff like that, I feel like has gone down quite a bit. And again, you could attribute that to a lot of things, but it really speaks to this idea of what we want to talk about with this episode of the misunderstanding even among Christians about work. And so, we want to address this quiet quitting stuff. There's some other issues we want to talk about with work. But to answer your question, Joe, yeah, I think you'd be blind not to see it. And, I typically think that young people tend to get bashed a little bit too much most of the time. But for this one, this typically is a younger generation problem. This is typically the 20 to 30-year-old that, again, like you just said, I don't get paid enough to care. This is... or not my job culture is another one, right? Well, that's not my job. I'm not going to worry about it. Let me do the absolute bare minimum that I possibly can in order to keep my job, but I'm not even going to think about going above and beyond. Doing things to the best of your ability, that's a thing of the past. So yeah, to answer your question, I think you'd be blind not to see it.
You're really seeing this in fast food places, which is where kids work, right? And I know neither of you frequent fast foods near as much as I do. I probably shouldn't, but driving through Dixon, Tennessee, and we go to a Wendy's. The line is pretty long, but, in the past, it's moved pretty well. It's taken a while. We really wanted Wendy's, and the other thing is, some of the other options there just did not sound very good. And it's like, okay, it moves fairly fast. We've been here before. We're sitting there. What is happening? Finally, it's our turn. It's one of those, like, multiple times I looked at Alyssa, like, should we leave? She's like, let's give it another minute. Or I'd be like, okay, let's give it another minute. And then we'd move a little bit, just enough to hope, right? And it's like, okay, we're moving. Then you sit there for 5 minutes, okay? If we don't move by this time, and sure enough, we'd move by that time. So anyway, we get to the front. There's 2 guys running the entire operation.
Wow.
2 guys. They said 4 people called out of work. So no wonder why the line was so long. They shut down. There was a Taco Bell in the area. They shut down for the day because, sorry, we can't get any work. Nobody wants to work. So the Taco Bell... this was like noon. We drove by, the thing was closed because they can't get anybody to work. This is ridiculous. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of Christians falling into this, thinking that it's okay to quiet quit. It's okay to call out of work because, hey, it's very much demonizing the 1%, right? We're working for the man and they don't appreciate us.
Well, that's the other side of it of, especially when you work for a mega corporation of, you know what, Walmart's not going to miss it if I do if I take a half-hour bathroom break on my pay time. like they're good for it. It's not a big deal to them. And, that's where people can justify stealing a little bit from the job. Oh, I'm going to take a little bit home. I'm going to, and so those things happen. And just kind of this sense of they're owed. They've got more money than me. And so I'm not getting paid that. Like you said, the person, I don't get paid enough to care. Like, you do get paid. It is your job. Like, that's literally what you are paid for. And if you don't like it, don't take the job. But like accepting this is the work that's before you, and whether it's Taco Bell, whether it's an airline employee, whatever job it is you're in, anybody can justify that idea. And so you say, is this something you're seeing? I think everyone's seeing it, and that's why you have that term being coined, quiet quitting. We don't coin terms for something that happened twice.
Right.
We it's this observable phenomena. The other thing, I've seen somebody kind of conspiracy theorize that the whole the Karen meme a few years ago, like talk to the manager, complain about the service, was basically people prepping for, conditioning us to accept lower standards of service. Like, well, nobody wants to be the Karen, and like, again, it's just a theory somebody's throwing out there. I don't think there was any coordinated effort to that, but I do think it's something people use of, hey, you're not doing your job, you're not fulfilling your work. Oh, what are you, a Karen for noticing? Like, no, there should be a standard. There should be an expectation here. And so, as you're saying, for Christians, this is a really important thing. And on the positive side of this, as you were kind of introducing this idea for us and sent us the outline, one of the things that came to my mind is this is a great opportunity for Christians, for us to go out into a workplace that doesn't care, that's not trying, that's not applying themselves, to really stand out, to rise up. I mean, you look at somebody like Joseph in the Bible, or Daniel, these guys that went, put their head down, were honest, hard workers.
They excelled everywhere they went.
The opportunities that came to them. Right. Yeah, they excelled.
Including prison.
Faithful in all things. And so, captivity, prison, all those things. And, just whatever that they were given to do, they did it. And so in this culture that is very get by with the minimum, quiet quitting, less work, as least work as possible, going above and beyond really sets you apart. And those places that you go, that's why Chick-fil-A has a great reputation. Smiling kids, working really hard, putting in a good shift and going home. That makes a difference. I'll just give my story briefly, and then we'll get into the issues you've outlined for us. I go to a local coffee shop. We've talked about it a few times. In the first couple years that I went there, same crew pretty consistently, people that were running it, managing it, real nice people. They all kind of moved on, graduated, went to different jobs. Since then, they've gone through like 30 people. And they only have 2 or 3 people working at a time. But just like they can't keep people. They just move on. And, the ones that actually are good employees get hired on to bigger, better opportunities because people are desperate for people who actually work. But there's so many people that come in and are just gone within a week or two because they're terrible. They can't be counted on. They don't show up or whatever. And so you just see it everywhere. So you've got 5 key issues we're going to work through on this one. Of our attitude towards work, I guess, is kind of the general thought. Because there's what we want to do with all this, the idea of a Christian worldview is everything that we do is under God's lordship. We did that episode on worldview a while back. And so to get our view towards work, and most of the people who listen to us probably work. I know some people listen with their kids or with their teens in the car. And so this is going to be very useful if you have kids or if you are a teenager, of developing that work ethic. I think before we get to that, as a kid growing up in school, I viewed work as a bad thing. And maybe this leads into your first point. We work for the weekend, right? We view work as a means to an end. Like, this is what I have to do to supply the life that I want to go enjoy, right?
Well, everybody's working for the weekend.
That. Everybody's working for the weekend.
Loverboy. No,
all right, there, Loverboy or whoever was that who the band was?
Yeah, Loverboy.
The 80s song.
Sorry,
but you learn that as a kid of like, I got to go to work, go to school all week, trudge through it, and on the weekend I get to have fun. At night in the afternoon I get to have fun, and this part of my life is the necessary evil almost. I think that's the working for the weekend thing, is the necessary evil thing.
Well, that's furthered, I should say, by the culture, right? All the songs about how much fun the weekend is, the pop songs, the country songs, all the, let's face it, if you're a sports guy, for football, it happens on the weekend. And so working for the weekend is something that a lot of, like you're saying, a lot of kids, a lot of people kind of grow up thinking, oh, well, that's just what you do. You work your Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and then you get to have fun on the weekend. And I will say, this is something that I've had to check myself on. When Monday rolls around, it's like, man, I'm just really looking forward to spending some time with the family on the weekend, watching football, whatever it is. And, we're not trying to say that you shouldn't look forward to that, or that you can't, want to enjoy time with your family on the weekend or whatever. But I think the overall point that, Joe, I'll hand it back off to you here in a second, is we're no longer, thinking about work in the way that God intended us to think about work. We're not thinking about it we're thinking about it in a, we have to, so I guess we'll do it in a compulsory, is that the right term, manner, rather than, no, this is something that's expected of us. This is something that you can be fulfilled in. This is something that you can even find joy in, right? You don't see that a lot. You don't see a lot of people finding joy in their work. You don't see a lot of people that are truly fulfilled in their work, and obviously there could be a lot of things that go into that. But we work for the weekend. We don't work for work's sake. And Joe, I want to hand it back to you to go back to the garden. The very first time that work was really established by God. Get us into that a little bit.
Yeah, so Genesis 2:15, then the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and keep it. This is before the fall. This is even before Eve has been created. Before he even has a partner in life, before he even has a wife, God has given him work to do. It was fulfilling. It was good. It's what helped bring him closer to God, clearly, because God's not going to give him anything that's going to take him further from him. What I wanted to challenge most with this podcast is just this idea that work is a quote-unquote 4-letter word. Yes, it's 4 letters long. But we all know it's not a curse word. It is not a bad thing. This goes back to the very beginning of time. God gave Adam purpose. And within our work is purpose. Those who want to get rich and get rich quick, kind of get rich quick schemes, but also you see all these kids, they want to be YouTubers, right? We see multi-level marketing, MLM and the pyramid schemes and such. And that's more of the previous generation. I think YouTube and these pop stars, TikTok stars, is the new multi-level marketing.
Right, yeah.
I think it's the new multi-level marketing these days. I think you have the upper echelon who actually do get rich doing it, and I think you suck in a lot of kids that think that they're going to get rich doing it, and they're the ones that provide the fodder for, and really the money for the upper echelon, because they're watching the Mr. Beast going, oh, how am I going to be? You're never going to be Mr. Beast. You're never going to have 100 million YouTube subscribers. I'm sorry.
Well, that's the other funny thing about it is you see any interview with Mr. Beast, that guy worked night and day for years to get to the point. I mean, like, outworked.
Literally, it's like 15 hours a day.
Yeah, for years. I mean,
7 days a week.
Yeah, to get to that point. And so it looks, oh, you just turned on the camera and made a video and now he's really rich.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I mean, This was research. This was trial and error. This was really applying himself. And there's no get rich quick. There's no shortcut. There's no... And so, yeah, it's kind of that I'll do this and I get to rest from it and just get to enjoy all, basically an entitlement sense a little bit. But go ahead, Joe.
And I think they flip the look at God in creation, right? Work 6 days, rest on the 7th. Is it okay to rest on the weekend? Yes, it is. I think God created it for that reason. Notice he worked 6 days and not 5, but either way.
With that, though...
Sorry, you got something.
God created and then rested, but it's been pointed out before, and I might have even said it on the show, Adam was created the 6th day. His first full day on earth was rest, and then it was to work. And so God rested from work. Adam worked from rest. And so you rest to provide you the energy to go work. His mission was to work. His mission was not here to sit back, kick back, eat the fruit of the garden, and just live the easy life. And I think we do that kind of with retirement too. Working for the weekend is a short-term version of what retirement is a long-term thing. I'm just going to work, hit this point, and then I don't have to do nothing. And that's going to be the real enjoyable part of life. And man, I don't know. You just see like the health decline of people who reach a certain point and then just sit on the couch watching TV all day, how bad it is for you. And so even in your retirement, keeping on working, the people who live longer, healthier, do better are the people who find some kind of fulfilling work to do. It might not be working for a company like they did their whole career, but still serving, doing, working, applying themselves. And so the working for the weekend mindset is a microcosm of the broader lifestyle thing that we think, which again goes so counter to Adam's creation.
Right. And we think that those who work really hard, that have to work really hard, are just noobs. They just haven't figured it out yet. If you were really smart, your money would be working for you. And so you would get super rich and be able to sit down on your, on your bum for the rest of your life, because that's what the really successful people do. It's like, that's absolute garbage. And this is why here's hot takes with Joe. I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Oh boy.
All of those people that go to college so they can extend adolescence because they don't want to work and they want to figure out the easiest path to work, and they're going to figure out the job that's going to make them $100,000 coming out where you work 2 days a week. Please stop. And please stop looking down on the blue collar.
It's kind of
Stop
funny
looking down the blue.
you say this on the day that crypto, as we're recording this, just crashed. I mean, like beyond belief. And I think Bitcoin's under 18,000 or whatever. And there's still some people at that level who have made a lot of money on it. But that's something that, the three of us have invested in. We've kind of kept up with. It's one of those things you can get big eyes thinking, oh, I'm going to invest in the right coin and I'm going to be set for life. There's very few shortcuts.
And it's just not. Right. And so my point, my dad is blue collar. He worked in sewers, water and sewer. And I think there was people that looked at, he always had a chip on his shoulder from it. And I think it was legit. I think there's a lot of people that look down on, oh, you work in the sewer. Oh, yeah. Well, do you have a college degree? No, I don't have college. Wow. My dad's the smartest guy I know. Okay. He's learned and learned and learned and learned. Does he have a letter behind his name? Did he get his bachelor's degree? No, he didn't. And ultimately, he was better off for it. My dad owned a company of 60 plus people, just sold it for a pretty good profit. So it's not wrong to be blue collar. My dad always had a great quote. We're going to get into this a little more later, but his whole point was, you don't always get to you don't always get to do what you love. Learn to love what you do. My dad was the best backhoe operator in Denver because you know what? He loved doing it. Did he like the cold nights where he got called out on an emergency at 11 p.m. and had to go sludge through sewage? No, but he was really good at what he did, and he took pride in that, and he grew to be the biggest company in Denver for what he did because of that attitude. So what we're calling Christians to is these people that never enjoy their work, that are just living for the weekend, and it's just a means to an end. Well, I guess I have to work to fund my fun lifestyle. What if you found more purpose in your work? What if you stopped looking at work as a 4-letter word, as a bad thing, as a problem, and started looking at as this is God's design for me?
I'm going to go ahead and call some people out too. Think about how many memes and jokes are on Facebook about stuff like this, right? Like, oh, here comes Monday, and oh, Friday afternoon, here's Friday night, our next couple days. It's just the poking fun at it, and again, not trying to put an embargo on fun memes or anything like that. But I think we further this idea quite a bit in culture with our social media, with our, just like we kind of take jabs at our spouse sometimes. When I say it's the collective we, not us three, but people kind of take jabs at their spouse, right? And it's all in fun. We do the exact same thing with work. Like, oh my goodness, me Sunday night right before work starts on Monday, and it's, this sad meme or whatever. We do this a lot. This is something that I think a lot of Christians can be guilty of adding to. And again, not that all fun is bad or anything like that, but this is something that God has always intended us to work. A lot of people mistakenly think, Joe, as you've already pointed out, that work was a punishment for sin. No, it wasn't. Work was a part of man's life before sin even entered the picture. The punishment was that the work would be harder, that his toil would be tougher. And so we've got to get back, whether it be on social media or Facebook, whether it be the way that we teach our kids, whether it be the jokes we make from the pulpit, whatever it is, we've got to get back to viewing work in a much more positive light, in a much more God-given light, rather than, well, this is something that I just have to put up with until I can hit the age of retirement, like Jack pointed out, or man, you just got to bear through it, Monday through Friday, but man, you enjoy those 2 weekend days. We got to stop viewing it like that. And I think, again, that's really where we're going with this part of the episode.
So there's this view, I'm going to skip a point on our outline, then we can come back to the next one, because I think these things are two sides of a coin, is we are so identity obsessed as a people of who I am and what I am and what my identity is and who I claim to be, right? As the individualism and just kind of like trying to create a persona of ourselves that we want to stand behind and say, here's who I am, in a way that is just kind of weird sometimes. And I don't think we appreciate how weird it is because it's what everyone's trying to do. And so there's two sides that can take, is if you're in a job that you can hate or that you hate, or again, in school as a kid, I was this way. You view the rest and recreation part of your life as your real life, right? Like that's who I really am. That's where I really pour myself into. That's where my identity comes out is what I do in those times. And whether it's your weekend activities, you go camping, hunting, fishing, hiking, outdoors, or it's, stuff around the house with the family and good things, really good things. Nothing wrong with them. At church time, things like that you do on the weekends. That's great. You kind of think that's who I am, and who I work is just kind of who I become for this the set amount of hours in a week that I need to do in order to afford to be who I really am the rest of the time. The other side of that is somebody would look at that and go, that's no good. I've got to find a job and only take a job in which I can find my identity in. And so I'm going to chase your dreams, and you've got to, really, really find a job that you love, find a job that you're passionate about. Like, it's so utopian, because I remember a few years ago Chipotle had on their bags, like some commie gobbledygook about, someday we're all just, nobody's going to have to work. We're all going to just, sit and eat good food. It's like, okay, well, who's making the burritos? Who's picking the rice? Who's picking the beans? Who's cooking the beef? Like, somebody has to work, and somebody's going to work a job that's not that glamorous. Folding burritos might not be that glamorous, but if you're going to eat a burrito, you've got to get all the stuff that's going to get it there. And so this idea, the same thing like you're saying, talking about cleaning sewers. Somebody's got to be the plumber. Somebody's got to pick up the garbage. And I mean, Mike Rowe has made a whole career off of this, of following people around saying, hey, here's these jobs people don't want to do, but hey, some of them actually pay pretty good.
Has to get done.
Yeah, yep. and it has to get done to make a society go. I mean, there's so many things. Again, as you said, guys digging holes, repairing sewers, power lines when the ice storms hit, things like that. Just driving a truck. How many? We've probably got people listening in a truck right now. That might not be the glamorous job that somebody anticipated in high school, but you can make good money. You can support a family on it. And yet we've got this generational thing of you got to chase your dreams, and you've got to just, really work at it until you get that dream job, because your identity is in your job. And so you need your identity to be glamorous. Well, no, what if your identity is in doing hard work to all of your might? Of whatever it is that's in front of you.
We're kind of all over the outline here, but I want to say something about chase your dreams culture, which is always.
Yeah, let's go to that one. Let's go to that one. So for those, we'll try to outline
now,
this.
Hold on. I said we were going to do that. I'm keeping us on track. We went 1, 2, 3.
We just went one over. But, okay, so first one, the first key issue is working for the weekend.
Yes.
And everybody's working. Okay, sorry.
You have to stop singing on the podcast.
Yeah.
I know. It's not good, but now I got everybody singing, so somebody's singing in their car.
I guarantee you nobody's singing in their car right now.
No.
Please, come on. Somebody is karaokeing with me.
Then chase your dreams would be that you don't want to work, you want to bang on the drum all day.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. You start that one.
I'm not
actually
singing.
No, I don't want to hear
you
you sing.
sing it.
Yeah, I don't want to hear you sing.
Okay. So chase your dreams.
Second one though. So second is chase your dreams. This second key issue. Sorry, Will.
I was just going to say, and guys like Tim Tebow that are just really cool, really good guy that kind of are well known for this whole idea of you can really be anything you want to be. Go chase your dreams. Go achieve your dreams. As Jack said, it's so unrealistic is the word I would use. It's so I do not plan on teaching my kids to chase their dreams. You know why? Because dreams are dreams for a reason. Dreams are not reality. Is it a bad thing to have something that you want to strive for and that you want to push for, that you want to really work for? No. But this idea of chase your dreams because it always works out. No, it doesn't. In fact, most of the time, what people dream about doing, what they really want, it's not reality. And so we've created this false expectation, again, specifically for young people, of you can be anything you want to be. No, you can't. I'm sorry. You can't be anything that you want to be. And that sounds mean. That sounds harsh. That sounds very, again, kind of.
But it's real.
Right. That's real. Again, I do not plan on teaching my kids to chase their dreams, that they can be anything that they want to be, because it's not true. And so we've got to get out of this idea of teaching young people this, of furthering this. Again, just I don't want to call it a lie, but it's pretty close, right? This falsehood of all you guys got to do is chase your dreams, and because that'll bring you ultimate fulfillment. That'll make you happy. Is if you dream something, you go after it. Again, dreams are dreams for a reason. They're not reality. Go ahead, Joe.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Sorry, I'm thinking of the Shia LaBeouf.
The references today are just off the charts, man.
Off the charts, man. It's too good. Anyway. Anyway, so what I was thinking though, as you were talking, there's a few different ways my mind was going. First off, I have a few friends. I was just talking to one the other day. Hadn't seen him in a long time actually, and hockey buddy. Both of them are hockey buddies. One was a videographer, dreamed of working for the Avs. Well, he got to do his dream job, worked for the Avs, doing videography, right? And it became it's where his dream, kind of his passion and his job mixed, and he ended up burning out. He's like, this is no longer fun. They're requiring things that I thought it was going to be so much better. And he's an incredibly talented guy. I love him to death. But what he realized was, now that the dream has kind of been realized, it's not what I thought it was. And another guy is just talking, he got to play pro roller hockey in Spain, which is the dream, right? I mean, they literally paid for him to go play roller hockey. He didn't have to have another job. He got to stay in Spain. Super cool. Had a few friends that were fortunate getting to do that. They came back. He came back and said it kind of ruined hockey. He hasn't played hockey in 2 years. It's like, it kind of ruined it for me because there's a lot of pressure on it. There's a lot of, like, I thought it was going to be different, and it really wasn't. Like, it just put more pressure and made the game less fun for me. And so I say that, these personal anecdotes, to say sometimes getting your dreams isn't always cracked up to be, isn't all it's cracked up to be. But the second part of this is, there's a lot of parents that I think live vicariously through their kids. And so this is why they skip on Sundays, is my kid's going to make the majors. You know, he's going to make the bigs. And so we're going to skip on Sunday because, boy, he shows a lot of talent, and his coaches are telling me that he's really got something special. And so we're going to put thousands into him going to every camp. He's going to miss a ton of Sunday worship. But you just don't see generational talent like this. And then the kid ends up doing what? Maybe goes, plays college ball, maybe makes the minor leagues, bounces around for a bit. Man, I had so many friends that ended up going into minor league hockey. Did one of them make the NHL? Maybe one. And it wasn't even a friend of mine. I mean, I knew him. It hardly ever happens. Talented kids, no doubt, but they chased their dreams right into minor leagues until they were 23, 24, aged out, realized they were never making the NHL, making $30,000 a year riding buses everywhere. I mean, come on. This is and meanwhile, their spiritual life is in the tank because we thought they were going to make their dreams. Now, somebody does. Some Christians out there, they do end up getting their dream job, whatever it is. To your point, Will, it's not that it's wrong to dream per se. It needs to be based in reality, and we got a lot of kids out there who think that being a chef sounds good. And so they pass up 5 different opportunities from their parents or whatever else. Their grandpa owns a business. They could go into that. They can make good money. But no, I'd like to be a photographer. I'd like to be a chef. I'd like to be whatever else because that's my dream. It pays jack squat. They have no reason, or they have no understanding of how hard it actually is, especially as a chef. You're working 100-hour weeks. It's grueling. It's difficult. You're missing work. You're missing church. You're missing family for those that actually make it. So they have no concept of reality, but that's their dream. So why not chase your dreams? Well, because it doesn't pay, and because you can't have a relationship with God, and because you can't have a family if you actually want to make it work. I mean, there's so many reasons, but nobody tells them that. Chase your dreams. It's Disney. Chase your dreams. Don't. Make sure they're based in reality first, please, if you're going
Jack,
to.
I know you're about to get in here, but Willie Franklin, for instance, a friend of Focus Press, I think a lot of people are familiar with, he made the NFL, right? He achieved his dream, and he realized, look, I'm going to basically be sacrificing my spirituality. I'm basically going to be giving up my relationship with God if I continue to pursue this NFL dream, if I continue to be in the NFL. I mean, Sundays are their busiest days, and he realized Sunday is God's day, and if I'm going to continue in this quote-unquote dream, I'm going to be sacrificing my relationship with God, and so he got out of it. I mean, can you imagine making the NFL or making the NBA or whatever and just, no, I'm out, jumping out? That's what he did because he realized what was most important. So, again, just kind of a real-life example of what you're talking about there, Joe. But, Jack, go ahead and get in.
Well, yeah, just the chase your dreams thing. It's not, always the athlete, movie star, whatever big thing it is. I think, Joe, you hit on a key point there that I want to emphasize with the chase your dreams thing is your work is part of your life. And what this is making it your identity. And again, like you said, parents might vicariously, oh, my kid's this, that, or the other thing. Look, that means I am validated as a parent. And number one, the spiritual is the most important. But number two, why this fails, why you see people get to that dream and go, well, now what? I'm not happy. You see billionaires sitting in mansions suicidal. I mean, how many famous people we see, drug overdoses, things like that, because, oh, wow, living the dream wasn't actually the dream, and it's an idolatry. And no idol can make you happy. An idol is a thing that you're trying to, there's that quote about, it's anything you're looking to give you what only God can give you. Your fulfillment, all of that, your identity has to be grounded in Christ. And if you do that, then any job you do, and that I think goes a little bit to Paul's contentment in Philippians 4. Whether I'm in jail, whether I'm poor, whether I'm rich, I can be content because I'm in Christ. I'm living for Him. And so your job can't be the chase your dreams identity thing. And so, like I said, I skipped a point too because I think these are the two sides of the coin.
That's very true.
My job is terrible. I hate it. It's the worst part of my week, and so I just get through it to enjoy my real identity is who I make myself out to be on the weekend, my Instagram lifestyle, what I'm putting out there on social media, or who I am around my friends. No, who you are flows into your job, but it doesn't flow into the job to the degree that this is what you're consumed by. A job is a job, and it's good, and you do it with all your might, and then you go home, and then you enjoy your family, your friends, your church, the other things that you do, but there's not this division that we make it out to be, of which one you're going to find your identity in.
That's right. I think your identity is, and I deal with this with my clients a lot, I do identity rings, and your identity is all of it. It's tied into your hobbies, it's tied into your job, but those are really on the outer rings. Those are some things that, it's part of you, but it's not the core of you. It's not really your identity. Your identity is how you do these things, who you are, not what you do. And I think there's a key distinction there, which is why when you're talking about the person folding the burritos, it's both. It's not a glamorous job, and it doesn't pay enough for them to really have a glamorous life on the weekend. So if they're working for the weekend, this is why nobody wants to work these jobs. It's neither. It's not a great identity. Oh, wow, it's super glamorous to fold burritos. No, it's not. It's super glamorous to try to go do something else, and so they do, and then they fail, and they live in their parents' basement. Or, the second would be it doesn't make enough to really fund their super fun lifestyle on the weekend, go snowboarding, go whatever else they're going to do. And so they want a job that's going to pay enough to fund that. And so this is why all these lower level jobs have nobody.
Well, and I want to speak to something too, because I don't want it to sound like that we have conflicting views here on certain things, because I'm a firm believer that any age, but young people especially, should strive for, that's a phrase, strive for greatness, right? That you should try to be, that you should reach for things, that you should try to do certain things like that. And so, we're not saying settle for your folding burritos job for your entire life. What we are saying is, in your pursuit of greatness, so to speak, in your pursuit of whatever it is,
excellence,
don't view it as, excellence, yeah. Don't view it as, I'm just going to do this so that I can enjoy my weekends. Don't do this so that I can get to the point where I can live a lifestyle of constant fun and Instagram and travel and all this. That's not really the point. And so, Joe, you've got Proverbs 12:11 on the outline. I want to read that quickly, and then I don't know if we want to jump to the next one. It says, "He who tills his land will be satisfied with bread, but he who follows frivolity is devoid of understanding." Following frivolity, I think, is a very interesting concept there. I think we got a lot of people that do that. I think we got a lot of young people that's what they're doing. They're following their frivolity, and it says that person is devoid of understanding. So I think we've exhausted the chase the dreams thing. Unless you guys have anything else to add, let's jump. Go ahead.
All I was going to say real fast, and then I'll get us into the next one. It comes back around to this: learn to love what you do. Right to your point, Will. Let's take the burrito maker. I think if you're in that role, do it to the best. Be the best burrito maker you possibly can be. You're going to stand out. To your point, Jack, earlier, you're going to stand out. You're going to move up. You're going to be managing that Chipotle before you know it, because you know what? You took your job seriously when you were a little grunt, and you're making $11 an hour. But my goodness, you were the biggest bargain of their life, because though you made $11 an hour, you knew how to roll a burrito. And you were amazing at it, and you were fast, and you got efficient, and it's like, wow.
And this applies to
this guy stands
any
out.
job on the planet.
Any job on the planet. Learn to love what you do and be the best you can. I recently heard, and then I'll get into the next point, heard a great sermon on God taking people where they're at.
Was it by you, Joe?
You look at David
you said
and
I heard a great sermon. Was it you that preached it?
No, but most of them are, to be honest. Most of them are. No, but it was a really good sermon of God taking people where they're at, and he used a few, but David and Goliath stuck out to me, because he said, David goes to wear Saul's armor. That's not what he had. What did David had? He had stones. He had his sling. And he goes out there, and God took him where he's at. He was delivering food to his brother, right? And he was going to go back to his dad and kind of give him some news. God takes you where you're at with what you have, and he uses you to his glory. And that's
Well, I mean,
exactly
yeah,
it.
that's okay. He was ready for that because he was killing lions and bears in his job, and
That's
so
right.
yeah, focus on excellence where you are. That's my point about your job is not divorced from who you are. Be excellent in that because it flows into everything else you are. So
That's
these
right.
next
So let's get
points,
in
I
the next
think
one.
we've got two more that go together. We'll start on the first of the two is excused laziness. Like the person you said, I don't get paid enough to care, or I'm worked too hard at this job. I don't like. I mean, there's a
My boss is a
million.
jerk.
Yeah, I don't like my boss. My boss, is difficult, or there's just a million excuses you can come up with to say I don't have to give my best. Um, uh, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward how we address this, but I want you guys to add any points, anything that you guys think needs to be really. I don't know. It's just a thing of like, just don't do this. Don't be that person that is pursuing excellence rather than somebody that's looking for a reason to not give your best.
Right. I mean, don't do it is probably the best way to sum it up. But again, as I kind of started this, because this is kind of where we actually started the episode, but this is not, again, I'm fully on board with the fact that older generations have a lot that they need to improve on, but this is typically not a problem that you see with the older generations, right? This is typically something that is a younger person issue of, again, just kind of, Joe's talked about before, demonizing business owners, right? Like, oh, well, they've got plenty of money. It's totally fine if I, take the long break or,
They're good
yeah,
for it.
I'll go adjust my clock in times and take a longer break or whatever. They're good for it. That's the point with all this, is that if we can raise a generation, or obviously, hopefully multiple generations of young people, of people that truly stand out from everybody else, of people that, you can look at a group of employees. We're torturing the burrito analogy here, but you look at a group of Chipotle employees, and you can pick out who the Christians are. You can pick out who the God-fearing ones are because of the way that they work, because of the way that they conduct themselves, because they're not joining in with the I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm going to just basically be lazy at my job. I'm going to sit around on my phone. I'm going to not put in the effort. If we can raise a generation, multiple generations of people who can, again, truly stand out, think about how much that would do for the gospel. Think about how much that would do if people can, well, that young person, man, they've got it going on. I bet that person is religious or is a Christian. I'll tell a quick story, and this is not at all about me being boastful or anything like that, but it proves this point. I was working, one of my first real big boy jobs, so to speak, was working at a UPS store, just a UPS franchise. I wasn't a driver or anything, but I worked at a UPS store. And, it wasn't a fast food job or anything like that, but it was something that, mediocre job. You're shipping packages, you're doing some computer stuff, doing this and that. But a lot of it was customer service. And, we've all been inside those places where it's like, you can tell the people don't want to be there. It's, they barely even ask how you're doing. They barely acknowledge you. My pet peeve is when you walk in a store and it takes, 4 minutes for somebody to acknowledge you. Well, we had this guy that was a mailbox owner. UPS has mailboxes that people can set up their business accounts or whatever. Well, he would come in regularly, and so I learned his name, and every time he'd come in, I'd use his name. His name was Jesse. I'd say, "Hey, Jesse, how you doing?" And, just it was natural. Jesse, a year later, offered me a job to come work with him. Literally, our only interaction was I would get his mail for him, help him ship out a package every now and then, and I would use his name when he came in the door. "Hey, Jesse, how you doing?" That was it. But apparently that was something, and again, that's not to boast or anything like that, but it's just to show, look how easily it is to set yourself apart. That's all it took, was for me to use this guy's first name, to acknowledge him when he walked in the door. I wasn't doing anything special, other than that. But that's how we can set ourselves apart, again, as Christians, as Christian young people, with any job, a UPS store, a Chipotle job, whatever it is. And so that we've got to get back to teaching this to our young people specifically.
Well, these are two scriptural principles, right? Of, faithful in little, faithful in much. We kind of do when I get to the big time, then I'm really going to shine. No, faithful in little, faithful in much. If you're able to excuse not working hard right now, you're always going to be able to find an excuse. Put the time in, put the effort in right now. The other one, Ecclesiastes 9, whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. Why waste your own time? That's one of the other things about the excuse laziness thing is, you're paid for this. You're here. This is an opportunity to learn, maybe to build relationships like that, that you didn't even know you were building. But everything you do is an opportunity. Everything you do is building part of your life, building your own character towards something else down the road, there's nothing in which you're just killing time. And so do it with all your might. There is, the old saying about if something's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And especially if you're getting paid to do it. And that thing about, well, I don't get paid enough. I know a lot of people have that attitude. You took the job. If you want to get paid more, go in and ask for more. If they're not willing to give more, then maybe you're not worth more. Or if you are worth more, another company will pay you more. I mean, that's one of those, I don't want to get into economics too much. We might do an episode on that down the road or something. But the Christian economics thing we've talked about, we might get to. But the minimum wage thing, well, minimum wage should be $15, should be $20, should be $25. And it's like, somebody made the point where I think it was, some fast food workers were saying, we deserve $17 an hour. And, the law should be that we get $17 an hour. And the point they were making is nobody on the planet, that this woman was saying, I've worked at McDonald's for 10 years and I still make, $8 an hour. And it's not fair. And he said, you've worked there 10 years. You've never been able to get your employer or anybody else to give you more than $8 an hour. And so the only solution you come up with is to make it illegal for them not to? What are you saying about yourself? You're the one who comes
The
out of
market
this looking
determines
bad, not
your
McDonald's.
value,
And
essentially,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Supply and demand. And what if there's no demand for what you're supplying, you're not going to get paid it. So work for what you basically create your own worth. Is the point I'm getting at here. And so you go in with that lazy take of I'll just mail it in and get the minimum done. You're creating your own worth, whether you know it or not. And so again, the scripture, faithful in little, faithful in much, whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might.
And I know there's the spiritual application to this, but the worker that comes in at the 11th hour that gets paid the same, and everybody balks and goes, hey, wait a minute, how come he gets the same? It's like, you took the job, okay? You took the job at that. If you didn't want to take the job, go find somebody else that's going to pay more. But you took it, and so no matter what ends up happening, you demonize, once again, the business owner, the guy who's paying you, and so that's the biggest part to excuse laziness. But this is why
the flight person that said I don't get paid enough for this, like that, you're calling yourself a liar because you agreed, you signed on the dotted line that I will get paid enough to care for this. That's literally what I'm getting paid for, is to care for these regulations that the company has in place. And you said, yeah, I'll do that, and then you come back around and say, no, I'm not going to. Well, you're just the dishonest one in that. And so there's so many ways you're tearing down your own character.
You've got, and that's exactly it, is your own character. This is an individualized thing. We look at it in a system, and it's like, well, in this system, look how many of us are, this is why they want to unionize. I'm not a big fan of unions. Nobody get mad at me. But, look, individualize this. Are you going to be the best employee you can be, regardless of your boss, regardless of your fellow employees? I don't care if every other person on your floor, wherever you're working, is horrible at their job. They stink at their job. They hate their job. You have to stand. We keep hitting this because work is an individualized thing. God gave Adam work to do. He gave Eve work to do. Everybody has their own role, their own job, and no matter what happens, no matter who does whatever to you, there's no excuse for laziness. I want to get into two quick ones and we're going to move on. Two quick verses. First off, of course, everybody knows Proverbs 6, verse 6, go to the ant, O sluggard, observe her ways and be wise, which having no chief, officer, or ruler, prepares her food in the summer and gathers her provision in the harvest. There's wisdom going on here, but also that hard work, right? How long will you lie down, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? A little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Your poverty will come in like a vagabond, and your need like an armed man. Basically, welfare. That's what it comes down to. Basically, welfare. You're going to need somebody else you're going to have needs arise. You're going to need somebody else to meet those needs for you because you're too lazy to do the work. Go work and work to the best of your ability. And I realize there's some people, that's a broad statement. There's some people who need a disability, whatever. I'm not speaking to that. I'm speaking to those who absolutely can work. It drives me nuts when you drive by, especially in this culture. I'm not going to get too much into the homeless culture, but my goodness, you drive by and there's a 40-year-old homeless man who looks like he's perfectly fine. Well, he's down on his luck and he's begging on the side of the road. I know there's all sorts of, they don't have a home address to fill out on a, on an outline, whatever, on a resume. Yeah, there's some challenges, whatever else, but it's like, in this day and age, with how many people are really struggling to find solid employees, you're telling me that you're homeless and that's the only option you have is to go panhandle. That's literally the only option. There's mental health issues. I'm not getting into that, once again. But at the same time, the point is, observe the way of the ant. They work their tail off. The other thing going to, of course, 1 Timothy 5:8, which is, look, if you're not willing to work, you're worse. Well, how does he say it? But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. He's denied the faith. Get to work. There's no excuse for laziness. There's no excuse to take
the degree to which Paul takes that. You've denied the faith. Like,
that's very serious.
The correlation between that. Well, and then one other, of course, 2 Thessalonians, a man does not work, neither shall he eat. The expectation that you're just kind of owed, you're entitled to an income or whatever it may be. So, yeah, excuse laziness does not work. And I mentioned these 2 points, I think, go together. Number 4 on our list is, I think, kind of an extension of this, that we kind of hastily have come up with this backside of this point to cover for the laziness. And there's kind of this concept that being poor, being broke is more pious. Now,
basically, the poorer you are, the holier you are, in a way.
Yeah, and the Bible is very clear about, hey, be very careful with riches. It's difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. 1 Timothy 6, Paul goes to the other side of that, of teaching the rich to be content in this present life. With food and clothing, we should be content. And so be careful not to put your trust in riches. I mean, there's a million verses about, hey, riches can trip you up. And so we've taken that to the other side to say, okay, well, being poor in itself is pious. That reading is one that basically pretends Proverbs doesn't exist. Proverbs talks about wealth will flow to the diligent, and you're going to be worthy of what you're going to earn, what you get, and the work that you put in is what you're going to get back. And that doesn't mean every Christian who's a righteous, hardworking Christian is going to be a millionaire. That's not how it works. But it does mean you're going to be taken care of. It does mean if you apply yourself, and again, to go back to this, in this culture where literally what makes you a standout employee is simply showing up consistently in some places, that's just crazy. And so the opportunities to rise up in a time of laziness, in a time of incompetence, and all the things that we're seeing, if you as a Christian apply yourself, you're going to have more, and you're going to, and having that more can be a blessing. You don't want to make it an idol, but you also realize, I can do something with this. I can help others with this. I can be secure. I can keep my family taken care of. I can, in an economy with bad inflation and all these things, we're having to look at, how do I keep food on the table? How do I keep, the air conditioning cool enough in my house when my electric bill is $400 a month? And, all of this stuff. And it's at that point you realize that, making money is not a bad thing.
And we've talked so much before about being Old Testament shy, and we kind of don't really, we stay away from the Old Testament quite a bit. Look at how many individuals, righteous individuals in the Old Testament, were blessed by God with wealth. We're just incredibly wealthy. You've got, I'm a firm, it doesn't necessarily say it, but how wealthy do you think Noah was to be able to afford to build a boat that was that enormous? You've obviously got Abraham, you've got David, you got Solomon, you got Job is a perfect example. You got all of these, not to even mention the Proverbs that I think Jack has brought up before, that does not demonize wealth. That these were righteous, righteous, godly people who God blessed them. And yes, again, to add the qualifiers, as we always have to do, you can go astray with it. It can be something that can be a terrible temptation. It can be something that you can just absolutely can throw your spirituality or can drive your spirituality into the tank. But it's not something that we can honestly say that being poor is to be more pious, or the poorer you are, the holier you are. There's so much in the Old Testament about wealth and about how that's something that God blesses us with. And again, think about giving the work of the church. Where would the work of the church be without the wealth of those who are willing to give and give generously? And so, yeah, I don't have a ton to add. We have to get away from this mindset, but it really is something that I don't think anybody might necessarily say out loud, but it's kind of pervaded our thoughts in a lot of ways.
There are plenty of poor people who desire money just as much as the rich. Okay, so we can look at it and be like, oh wow, the rich are just so greedy, the 1%, and it's like, and you wouldn't kill to be part of the 1%. You don't covet their money. You're not greedy in and of yourself. Just because you're poor doesn't make you holier somehow. And I think it's so interesting. What does Solomon ask for? He could have asked for riches, and God would have given it to him. He asked for wisdom, and God goes, yeah, I'll throw in riches on the side. I think that's very interesting. He had the wisdom to go along with it. Now, the end of his life clearly had women issues, but at the same time, God saw fit to bless him where he was the richest man that probably ever lived. That's very interesting that God thought, well, I'll bless him monetarily. I'll bless him physically in that way. Like you said, Will, I think it's just such a good point that's throughout Joseph, Daniel, we could throw so many in there that are blessed physically and monetarily being men of God, and it's because they work really hard. Do you think that God would bless somebody who wasn't faithful and who wasn't working hard and who was just a lazy guy? And he, no, I don't think so. And yes, we see the rain falls on the just and the unjust right there. I mean, some men...
the Job thing about God gives and God takes away. You know, you can work hard and get all those things. Or in Hebrews, where he says your property has been stolen from you and you endured it cheerfully. Of maybe they worked and they did accomplish and get ahead and it was taken away. And you're not better or worse in one or the other. And I think that was one of the things the Bible really was going after is just being a rich guy doesn't make you a good person. And that was kind of, they had that view of, you're blessed. Not necessarily. Just being a poor person doesn't make you a good person, because we can go to the other side and be like, oh, well, if the rich isn't blessed, then No, it's who you are. And again, that's another one of those, whatever state you're in proves your character. If, you're that hard worker at the fast food place, you're going to be the hard worker, at the law firm or the doctor's office or whatever it may be. If you are a content, generous person, and you see that. Some of the most generous people I know are people who don't have anything.
Sure.
It's unbelievable.
Well, that's the widow's two mites, right? In the New Testament. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And some of the most generous people I know are people who have more than all of us combined, okay? Both are equally righteous in their generosity before God. They just do with what they've given. God gives, God takes away. They give out of what they have. And so that's part of it. And that's what I was saying about this kind of being a way that we excuse the laziness is if I don't work hard, I don't apply myself, I'm not diligent, I'm not, really doing what I should on the work end, and so I don't have what I should to show for it, and you go, well, at least I'm not one of those rich people caught up in my money. Like,
right.
Well, maybe,
be shrewd in be shrewd in what you're looking for is all we're saying. It's okay to look at opportunity, to chase opportunity, and to get rich from doing it. It's okay to do that. And as long as you're giving glory to God, you recognize He's the one that gave the opportunity. He's given you good works to walk in, Ephesians 2:10. Ultimately, it all goes back to Him.
And that you stay mindful of where your priorities are.
Praise God. Right. That's right. Stay mindful. But don't think that it's wrong to look at an opportunity. People ask me, why are you a therapist? Why'd you choose therapy? And honestly, it was to help people. I'm fascinated with the human mind. I think it's very, but at the same time, I looked around Denver and said, how many Church of Christ therapists are there? I can count on half of one hand how many Church of Christ therapists are. You don't think there's money to be made when you stand out and there's only 1 or 2 or 3 of us total in a town of 5 million people? Yeah, you bet there's a lot of money there. So 3 million probably. But either way, it's okay to pursue something. Once again, that's not to be the same as you, Will. It's not to boast.
I mean, that's part of this, economy of man God has set up, is that if you can provide a skill, provide a service that is fulfilling somebody's need, the worker's worthy of his wages. Yeah, there's a value to that. And so that's a good thing that you're helping people. You're fulfilling a need that people have. You deserve to reap the benefits of that. And that's where you get into the whole, well, teachers should be paid as much as movie stars and athletes.
That drives me nuts.
Supply and demand. Now, how much of it? And you're filling an important need, but there's also 10,000 of you. There's also, and so, the skill that you're bringing, there's not that many therapists, especially within the churches of Christ, with a theological basis. And so, yeah, there's a value to that in itself. And so, yeah, being broke, being more pious. I think Will, you might have one thing to finish before.
I was just going to go ahead and get us in the last one. But what I did learn from this segment, Joe, is that me and you should not demonize Jack because of how much wealthier he is than us two. So.
Oh, I was going to say because of how much poorer he is. No,
no, I was.
Jack's holy.
That's true.
Yeah, that's right.
That did not help.
Jack's going for the pyramid scheme Bitcoin here, trying to just get rich quick. See how it is.
Like Michael Scott. Exactly, it is a get rich quick scheme. You will get rich quick. Anyway, let's get to the last one. We are still off the rails quite a bit today. Anyway, the last one. This is kind of taking the excused laziness side of things and really swinging the pendulum the complete other direction, and that's this idea of workaholism, right? And you see this a lot with the dads that that work 100-hour weeks, 90-hour weeks, and they never get to spend time with their kids, they never get to spend time with their family, but they love to work. They're not being lazy, they're maybe they're really fulfilled in their job, but they're just spending so many hours working. That's all they do. They prioritize their job over their family. A lot of cases they prioritize it over their spirituality. Obviously, this is swinging the pendulum again in the other direction from the laziness, but this is a very dangerous thing as well. And I don't think that's news to anybody, but we want to get into this. We're going to make this kind of the last one that we go through. Guys, what do y'all have to add about this idea of workaholism, this idea of that's where you're spending pretty much the majority of your time. Your family suffers. Your spirituality suffers. In a way, I shouldn't say it's more dangerous. It's certainly just as dangerous as this bare minimum lazy concept of work. And on the surface, you might say, well, no, this person's working really hard. There are so many people I know that their kids' faithfulness evaporated because they were so concerned with making a dollar. They were so attached to their work. They never saw their dad. So, guys, what do y'all have to add to that?
Well, couples, that we've probably all met where the husband and the wife are working like 60 hours a week, just barely seeing each other, go up, 6 a.m, dropping the kids off at daycare, 6 o'clock at night, picking them up after school, at daycare or whatever, they're sent to. And, but boy, they've got the really big house, they got the pool, they got the boat, they got the jet skis, they got, all the stuff. And man, they've got the accomplishments. They're going to awards dinners. They've got the plaques on their wall for all the hard work they're doing. It's like, yeah, somebody else is raising your kids. You don't know your kids. What value is there in this, man? Like, what are we sure that you're really where you need to be with that? Or to the same point of not able to be at Wednesday or Sunday worship because there's more work to do. There's more money to be made. This is, we talked about being broke is not more pious, but this is one of those when either the money that comes from all the extra work or the prestige, the status that comes from it, and sometimes those are very, hand in hand, that becomes the idol in itself of what I'm getting out of all of this extra work, the fulfillment, the adoration, the money, the nicer house, all of the things, as we said, not demonizing the rich. It's okay to have, to earn and to succeed and all that. But if it comes to a point where your priorities in life of your family, your worship, your walk with God, serving others, you don't have any time for your church family. I mean, it's bad enough that they don't have time for their own kids. That's priority number one. But if you can't ever be around your church family and encourage and do those one another's, that's a problem in itself too. I mean, there's a bunch of things that should come before working a million hours to have the job, to have the money, to have all of the things that come with that.
The question is just at what cost, right? Like you're working, at what cost? All of these things are the cost of it. And I will say workaholism sounds a whole lot like alcoholism, right? For a reason. What's the problem with alcoholism? Well, there's a lot, but what's the core issue? You're running from your problems. You're running into the bottle, away from your problems. I'm convinced this is workaholism, right? You are working so much to run away from whatever problems you have. Deal with your problems, work through any traumas you have, any issues you have. Of course, that's the therapist talk, but I work with people who work themselves to death, and you go, well, what would happen if you didn't? Well, I lose everything. I would be worthless. I'd be whatever it is. If that's your answer, you've got deeper issues. Okay, and you are merely fueling your issues by working yourself to death because you need to come to grips with, I'm still a worthwhile individual, even if I'm not working myself to death. Even if I'm not working 90-hour weeks, you still have amazing value. But I'm still in 1 Timothy here. Had my Bible turned open, of course, to 5 verse 8. But we have Paul's admonition to all women in 2:15. Women will likewise be preserved through the bearing of children, if they continue in faith and love and sanctity with self-restraint. Well, who's they? In my opinion, that's speaking to the kids. If the kids continue in faith and love and sanctity with self-restraint, the mom's role, a woman's role, is to bear children and to keep the kids faithful, to keep the kids under control, to keep the kids dignified, right? That's a big part. But then also the elders, which every man should aspire to this, right? In my opinion, that not every man will, but every man should aspire to look like somebody who could be chosen as an elder. What I have in 3 verse 4, he must be one who manages his own household well, keeping his children under control with all dignity. But if a man does not know how to manage his own household, how will he take care of the church of God? There's the managing aspect there. So you have both parents involved. You have the woman bearing the children and keeping them, in faith and love and sanctity with self-restraint. And you have the man keeping the kids under control and managing his household well. If both parents are working, how is that getting accomplished? It's not. If both parents are workaholics, that is, and don't make time for their kids and aren't, putting that as a priority. And so workaholism it's about finding your soul identity. Jack, you already touched on this earlier, but it's about finding your soul identity in your work, in your job, and that's a very dangerous thing. You are more than just the job that you do. We again, you can swing the pendulum back and be like, well, it doesn't matter at all. No, it does. But how you work matters. And if you're working yourself to death, that also matters, because I don't think that's what God intended, for Adam to work so hard that he neglected Eve and his entire family.
It's so important that we keep a heavenly perspective with all of this. Obviously, work is a very earthly concept when it comes to you have to provide for your family. All these things that we've discussed, very physical, very earthly. And so it can be difficult to remember how instrumental Colossians 3 is when it's talking about doing your work as to the Lord. You're not just serving men, you're serving Christ. Obviously, everybody knows Colossians 3:17. Whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. He goes into wives and husbands, kind of mirrors a lot of Ephesians 5. But then when he's talking to bondservants, verse 23, he comes down, he says, whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. How much differently would so many people look at their jobs, this whole notion of quiet quitting and laziness, or even working too hard? How much of this might change if we realized we're serving God and Christ, not just our boss, not just our employer? This whole, my boss is a jerk, they're good for it, I'm going to stick it to them, I don't get paid enough to care. How much of that would disappear from the Christian perspective if we kept these verses in mind? If we remembered that we're not just giving our service to men, we're offering our service to God. And I guess the question for each of our listeners, and those who might think they might struggle with this, to ask themselves is, what kind of work offering, what kind of service are you offering up before God? Is it this laziness, this I don't care enough, I don't get paid enough to care? Is it that? Because remember, you're offering that to God as well. And so again, I think this is something that we've got to keep in mind, regardless of our age, regardless of what job we're at, regardless of any of those things. We're offering our services to God as well. And so what offering what service are we offering up?
I want to finish, because we're kind of wrapping up here. We've gotten through our outline. This is one of those where I've just growing up my whole life, I've seen so many good Christian examples of this, of people who were competent in the workplace, whether they had their own business or they rose up through a corporation or wherever they were, who were generous with their money, who were skillful in what they did, like really made it a craft out of it, didn't become workaholics and go too far with it, really threaded this needle where it should be. And I'm really thankful for that example, and that is something that is so important that gets passed on to the next generation. As we said, this is something that is becoming entrenched in teenagers and young people in college, of it's okay to not work hard unless it's your dream job, unless it's something that you're fulfilled by, unless it's, basically it's up to you whether you want to or not. No, look at the people around you. If you're a young person listening, you've got people in your church you can look at. I'm fairly certain every church I've been a part of, there's been these people you can look at and go, they are an example of competence, of showing up, of learning, of doing the job right. And that's a great example. Learn from those people. Ask them questions. Figure it out. It's such a valuable thing. And again, as Christians, we're supposed to stand out. We're supposed to be lights in this world. And that is one of the main ways in which we interact with the world, especially, those of us that are, in pulpit jobs, which I am for now. We'll see where that goes from here. But when you're out in the world, this is maybe the main way you're going to interact with the world. And so showing them what a Christian works like, what Christ light coming through you in the workplace looks like, is a really great example, especially the darker this world gets, is to be that competent person. And number one, you're shining the example of Christ. Number two, you're creating opportunities for yourself. As we've talked about all along, that excellence in the little things is going to be noticed, because man, is it rare these days. And so I number one, I want to really thank Christians. If you're, we've got people listening to this who are driving to their work, driving for their work, whatever it may be. Thank you for the example you provided. Keep working hard. Young people are watching. Teach your kids these things. Teach them diligence. Teach them that accomplishing, achieving, and excelling is of the Lord, that it's a good thing, that it's not something to be ashamed of, and standing out. That's the more socialist our culture becomes, the more it becomes based on dragging down any overachievers, any high achievers, bringing everyone down to the same low level. don't settle for that. Be your best. Be that example. And again, thank you to the people who have been that. That was the last word I wanted to get in. Any final short thoughts, Joe?
I do.
Short.
Yours wasn't short, and I think you had like 3 number ones in there. So yeah, number 1, and then you came around to number 1. I don't know that you.
All right. Well, why don't you get started on number 1 then here?
There you go. No, number 1, but mine I have like 5 points. No, just kidding. What you had mentioned though, it's you're doing it for yourself, but also that you're being your best for yourself. But Ephesians 4:28, he who steals must steal no longer, but rather he must labor, performing with his own hands what is good, so that he will have something to share with the one who has need. We're working for other people as well. We're working to take care of the other people. And if you recognize what the early church was doing when they're giving these things up, it's because they had it. It's because they're God had blessed them and they're giving others. If you have nothing to bless people with, it's okay if you're down on your luck, whatever it is. But don't settle for the one always being given to. We want to work hard so we can give to others. So 2 things that I will say. That was first. Here's another first. No, 3 points. Number 2, for the parents. Jack, you already hit on this. I'm going to make this brief. I truly will. But your kids are paying attention. We say, how do kids, why do my kids say it to work? Well, how do you discuss your job? How do you talk about when you come home from work? Are you, I had this happen and this went wrong and that went wrong and my boss is doing this and wow, this is horrible and I just can't wait to go on vacation, and you never talk well about your job, all the accomplishments, the things that you're working hard on, and you're really giving that example to your kids. Talk well of your job, talk well of your boss, talk about the cool things you're able to do, and model for your kids that this is great. God has blessed me with work. He's blessed me with the ability to keep a roof above our heads and food on the table, and we're just grateful that I have a job that, that my boss pays me for. I think that's really important. For the young kids, last thing, point number 3, for the young kids, the advice I give, look for opportunity. I'm not completely against college. Of course, I went to college, but you know what? I wanted to be a therapist, which requires you have a master's in something, marriage and family or professional counseling. That's what I did. I didn't go to college just to go to college and have the experience. I'm not a big fan of that. If you don't have something picked out ahead of time that this is what I need, in my opinion, you're wasting your money. This is Joe's opinion, but I think you're wasting your money. I would look for opportunity. If you have an opportunity in your hometown, and somebody's offering you to be a mechanic and you're going to start at $23 an hour, and you're really good with working with your hands and you really like being a mechanic, but all my buddies are going to college, man, take the job. Look for opportunity. Making money's not wrong. Helping out where possible. That's how this is done. So if you're just going to college to extend adolescence, please don't. If you have a reason to go to college and you need it, go for it. That's my last thought for young men, is just look at the opportunity. Try not to go into the same field as every other person going into it. Choose something that's gonna make you money, and rise up in your industry, where we have a bunch of Christians in high positions of authority in big industries, changing society, changing the world, changing their cities, changing their towns, all this. That's exciting to think about, and I think that's what we could do if we really stand out as Christians. So that's my last word. No, it wasn't brief, but I'm not going to.
At least he's consistent, right?
Bingo. You know what to expect.
Count on long-winded Joe.
That's right. Anyway.
Right. Well,
yeah,
well, I had something, but Joe took up all my time, so I'm good. No, I'm just kidding. I'm good.
True.
What else?
Yeah, he covered it. That's a good way to wrap. Good way to wrap. So,
all right, we're gonna finish there. Let's see. Oh, we've just rolled out. We mentioned it before, but we're gonna remind you again. Joe's new podcast. It's a very short one. What are these? 10, 15-minute episodes a week,
try
Joe?
To keep under 15. Yep.
Yeah, believe
He
it or not,
actually is brief.
I know.
Yeah.
Of all the people,
there you go.
Of all the people, you think.
This is one of the most important works going on in the church right now. It's such a big deal. You need to know about it. The Get Out of Porn podcast. Joe works with guys. He's got a high success rate of helping people break an addiction. The church, statistically, we're just racked with the issue of pornography addiction. 70, 80% of men look at it at some point. Addictions are high. I mean, the statistics are all out there if you want to look for them, but look up that podcast. Joe is going to work weekly through helping you overcome this addiction, or somebody your teens. This is something churches need to be talking about. We've said that so many times. We had a whole episode on it. We've got to think fast on it. We want the resources out there, and this podcast is going to be maybe the best resource for helping people with that. And so subscribe to the Get Out of Porn podcast, the number 3 podcast on our rapidly expanding Focus Press Podcast Network. Number 4 will be coming here in a couple weeks, which is also going to be really good. I'm really excited about it. really excited to tell you guys about it, but not yet. But right now, Get Out of Porn podcast. Be sure to go subscribe. Help us spread the word. It's something that people aren't real quick to post to Facebook, share the word about, because the word porn is something you don't want to talk about. We need to talk about it. We need that word out there. So help us get the word out. This is a great resource that Joe's giving for free. And so look it up wherever you get your podcasts. And with that, we will talk to you guys next week.